Hey, Averil, thanks so much for joining me today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me, Sarah.
So what we just wanted to cover, and we get a lot of questions from people, and I know you certainly are in family law, around what's happening with Corona and what that means in terms of the family law. First, I just wanted to touch on, I know you're running a promotion at the moment for people to be able to come and have a chat with you about some of their common questions around COVID. What is that service that you're doing, and I guess what are some of the common questions that you're getting in regards to family parental agreements?
Yes, well, I guess as soon as the coronavirus kind of broke seriously in Australia, we identified a real need amongst our clients. So we had a number of clients kind of quite panicked around what they needed to do with respect to their parenting arrangements and what things they needed to think about. Because of the level of almost distress, I would say, amongst our own people, we decided that we would offer a service to anybody who wanted to come and have a free 30-minute chat with us to raise any questions specific to COVID-19. And so we've been doing that for a few weeks now, and we've had a number of people from all over Australia kind of taking advantage of it and asking the questions that they've got, and hopefully leaving kind of feeling a bit reassured. Mostly people have been coming in via Facebook, so you can contact us via the Facebook Messenger mechanism or just telephone us in the usual way. And I suppose the most common question that people are asking is, if we go into a full lockdown, what are my obligations and responsibilities?
Yeah.
And that's been a fairly difficult question to answer, because to a degree it requires us to have some kind of crystal ball, really, in an area of law, at risk of sounding like a broken record, that is actually unprecedented. So I suppose really the most common question is if we go into lockdown, do I have to send my child? And there's no hard and fast answer to that question, because every family is different and every set of circumstances is different. Some people have court orders, some people don't. And there's lots of sort of common sense elements to it as well. For example, something you and I were speaking about earlier, families that might live with elderly parents or grandparents, and there's things in that sense that need to be taken account of as well, that are really pragmatic public health type situations. So that's really the common question. What are my obligations? Do I have to send my children? And if I do, why and how? And, how do I make that work?
Yeah, so everyone's situation in these things is completely different. So I guess the best thing for them to do is to reach out to you via the Facebook page, and we'll share the details in that, to be able to have that, fantastic service that you're offering, to be able to let people reach out and, give them a bit of reassurance or get them a bit of advice in what is definitely an unprecedented time. One of the other things we talked about was, tragically, obviously, with the lockdown, a lot more family violence and that happening. So we'll have a bit of a chat about what people can do in those situations and services, and how they can reach out for support as well.
Yes, that's right. And it's really unfortunate that people who are living in fairly awful situations, these conditions really only exacerbate that environment for those families. So any families that were in a sort of risk situation, the risk is probably increased fairly significantly. Domestic Violence Crisis Service in the ACT, and there's equivalent services across the country, are all still in operation. And as I understand, working in a combination of remote and in-person where required, and can be contacted in all the usual ways. The family violence courts are still operating, although on a fairly bare bones type basis. And I think they're doing a fair bit of electronic stuff where they can. And of course, we're taking all of our appointments in the usual way, usual being electronic at this point, but otherwise nothing changes for us. We'll do our stuff via Zoom like you and I are doing now, so it's, not difficult.
Yep, great. And as that covers the last thing in terms of, you cover a very broad range of family law. What are the courts still open if people are in, before COVID happened, were in the situation of negotiating divorces or parenting agreements? What is affected at the moment by that in terms of the court?
Yeah, the courts are still open. So the family courts are physically open, and the judges are still physically sitting, but most mentions and hearings are being directed to be moved to electronic means at this point. Some of the courts are using telephone appearances, and some of the courts are using team meeting, I think it's called, Microsoft Teams, to do visuals, audio visual stuff in the case of actual hearings. So the courts are doing their best to try and accommodate. There are some circumstances where matters are being required to have personal attendance, but they're pretty few and far between, I understand. I suppose the only other thing that's happening with the courts at the moment is that anything that's being deemed as not necessarily very urgent isn't being given much priority. So of course, any matters that involve children are going to be deemed urgent ahead of, for instance, dividing property or assets. Yeah, so people need to be aware of that. I think that they may not be given the sort of priority or urgent treatment that they might have otherwise in a different environment.
Yeah. Everything's changing in all areas for all of us. So that is some really great advice, and it's great to see you offering that service where people can reach out, because I know there is a lot of concern and anxiety because this is new for a lot of people, and it's great that you're offering that people can reach out. So I'm sure we'll check in again if any of our people have any questions. But I think there's some great advice for people to get a bit of an idea, and we'll put all the information of how they can reach out to you, Averil, and your team during this time. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Sarah. Nice chatting with you.
Good to chat with you.